Is everybody having a good RTX? Surviving 5 p.m. on a Sunday, right? How tired is everybody? All right. But who's pumped to be here right now? Okay. So, my name's Luis Vasquez, but everybody calls me Paco. I'm the producer of animation at Rooster Teeth Animation, which is the easiest job in the world because all I really have to do is let these guys do what they do well. They are the lead animators for both Chibi and Ruby and RBB and every other 3D animated show that you've seen, so I'm going to let them introduce themselves.
I'm Dustin Matthews.
I'm Paula Decanini.
And I'm Joel Mann.
So, yeah, working with those guys over the past few years, just making the shows and growing the department has been just great to see how the quality of the shows has been improving, and that's why my job is just telling them, hey, do this, and by the way, don't forget it's due, tomorrow or whatever.
Now!
So, yeah, so right now,
He does
Joel,
more than that, though.
yeah. So I think you guys got a little presentation going on, and then after that, we're just going to hang out and talk animation.
Cool. So, yeah, I guess first we can just talk about what we've been up to since we last saw you guys last year. So we completed RBB 14, especially with Mercs, which was kind of a unique take on the RBB universe. We kind of, reintroduced the characters of Locus and Felix in kind of a brand new style and a whole new world.
You got to animate RBB characters not wearing Spartan suits.
Yes. And that was, for us, that was kind of a stepping stone for Ruby Volume 4 because that was kind of the first time that we made, the big migration back into Maya, and we had a rigging team for the first time. Any riggers here? Brian's here.
Brian.
Everyone give Brian a hand.
Shout out to Brian.
Yeah, these guys toiled hard night and day to basically create, the rigging system that is essentially the backbone of all the characters and props and sets in our universe, and really have allowed the animation to really improve upon, the quality of work that we produce. So yeah, that really helped us get into Volume 4, which who watched Volume 4 last year? Y'all liked it, right?
You want to talk about that trailer for a little bit, Joel, man?
Yeah, we can talk. So, yeah, the trailer was a really incredible experience. It was the first time that, we were, like I said, we made a migration from Poser into Autodesk Maya, and so we basically rebuilt Ruby from scratch. Like, nothing you see on screen in Ruby 4 was a reused prop or asset. Like, we remodeled everything. Even during the trailer, when we first started the trailer, we literally had the Ruby rig, and we worked from there. We kind of got everything as we go along, and it was incredibly difficult to work on, but it was actually a pretty great experience because it was kind of neat to see just everything kind of start to evolve and kind of be a part of the process of actually working with the riggers and the modelers and trying to figure out how is this stuff going to work in Maya, and what tools can we develop for the animators to improve this season.
I think first I want to give a shout out to our supervising producer Cohen Wooten, who's not here right now, but something that he likes to say a lot when we were working on the trailer is that it's a vertical slice, and what that meant was we were able to test the whole pipeline from beginning to end on the trailer so that we could figure out what was working, what was not working before we started working on the show proper, which I think if we went straight into episode 1 the way we went into the trailer and just figure it out, I'm sure that would not have been I don't know, it just would have been difficult to figure out.
Yeah. There was so much stuff to figure out that, so whenever you're working on the show, you have a folder structure where you save all your stuff, but the trailer was so hacked together that we actually had to split out and make a new folder for Ruby because we just couldn't use that.
Yeah, that trailer is its own, Good times.
Well, the interesting about that trailer as well is we did the version for RTX, and then kind of along the way we were kind of discovering some really cool tools and pipeline stuff. So what we did was we really took the time and go back, and I think we spent another few months on it, just
Probably.
like retooling it. Like if you were to look at the RTX premiere version of the trailer and compare it to the final version that was released, like the animation is still there, but in terms of the final look of it, like it's drastically different than what we saw at RTX, and that was just a few months worth of work, and one of the exciting things about Ruby 4 is along the way it's like we were discovering all these additional really cool things that we could do that we're trying to do going further on to other projects. Cool. So yeah, Ruby 4 was a pretty cool achievement that we did last year. Another project that we were able to get started was Ruby Chibi.
Yeah.
Which I can let Paula speak more to that, but yeah, I mean, we completed Chibi Season 1, and then I guess, do you want to talk about how the development of Chibi 2 went, and just kind of the changes that have happened between now and Season 1?
I think I was going to talk about that more later, but I can go ahead and say that Chibi is different than pretty much all the other shows, because we don't necessarily think of it in terms of episodes. We think in segments, and it's kind of like a jigsaw puzzle that we kind of figure out where to put the segments within the episode. It's a lot more unstructured, so it takes a lot more communication and collaboration between the departments, and that was something we learned a lot in Season 1, and we're still learning in Season 2, and I'm sure we'll be learning in Season 3.
Yeah, it definitely has its pros and cons, but I guess you said you want to get into Chibi in more detail later?
Yeah.
Cool, let's do that later.
I guess, Dustin, do you want to talk a little bit about RVB 15 and how that's been just a little bit different this year?
Yeah, sure. I guess it's been pretty well. I guess because all of it has been comp shots, which is what we call it whenever it's just a machinima plate, but then you do the animation and put it back in it. So like you're a little bit more like limited to like stuff you can do, because a lot of times we can't move the camera and do things like that. So it's just a little bit different that way. And then also Joe's directing this year, so that is like fun working with a new director. But that's really it.
Yeah. And then obviously we did the Weiss character short, which again is kind of like the previous trailer. It was really what we call as a vertical slice. Again, we were trying to really test some of the new tools and techniques that we're trying to do, and from an animation standpoint, we were really trying to take what we learned from Volume 1, apply it to the trailer, but also kind of start like figuring out what kind of different things that we want to do for Volume 5. How much further did we want to push the animation? What were some of the more stylistic choices that we wanted to try out this season and stuff like that? And and we're kind of starting to take that into Volume 5 right now.
Who got to watch the Wise short either on Friday or today? Do you guys like it? Woo! Cool. Yeah. Shout out to Joel and also everybody else that worked in that trailer. You want to name them?
Joel, how many revisions was on that shot?
So there was one particular shot. It was that wide shot of her hacking up on the Grim, which is my favorite thing in the whole wide world. I think I had 852 versions of that file just in animation. It went through a lot of revisions, and it crashed a lot, so hence why so many saves. But although it makes me happy that it wasn't just a pain for me, it was a pain for everyone to put that shot together. But in the end, like the end product of that shot was it was phenomenal, and it was really cool to see that. But yeah, the other animators that worked on it were Melanie, Aisha, and Hannah. Are y'all here by any chance? Stand up, stand
If
up.
you worked on the Weiss trailer, stand up right now.
Woo! Yeah, anyone who worked on the Weiss trailer, stand up.
I remember when we sent that shot to post so they could get started on it, and Krista, our post producer, just came over to my desk and she goes, "Hey, so that file, I think there's something wrong with it. It just refuses to open, and I think Joel messed it up somehow. I don't know.
Yeah, I messed it up 852 times.
Yeah, but now it's out there and people loved it, so it's all worth it.
Hannah also did some work on Chibi. If you enjoyed Cool Uncle Crow's dance moves in the club, that was all Hannah.
Shout out to Hannah again. Woo!
Cool. So I guess now Paula, do you want to go into your Chibi talk?
Yeah, I'll talk a little bit about Chibi. So Chibi Season 1 was a little bit of a proof of concept. It was kind of, This is Andrea, who also worked on Chibi. She was
Andrea, stand up.
lead animator on Season 1. It was a lot of trying to figure out how the show was going to work from a standpoint of workflow and storytelling. It's a lot more cartoony than the other shows, and it's a lot more aimed at a younger audience than Rooster Teeth had done before. And there's a few things that came up, like how will this new style of show work? Will the fan base respond to, the cartoony, youthful, fun quality of it? How will this new style of workflow happen? As I was saying, the format is different from other shows. It's divided by segments rather than episodes that we kind of puzzle piece together. And how do we collaborate with other departments to make sure we have what we need to start a segment, and our schedule is a little more fluid than other shows. We have to kind of think on our feet a little bit more, because there's just it kind of just moves at a very fast pace, and you got to think on your feet and just kind of go with the flow a lot. Can go to the
Should I fast forward?
Yeah.
Preparing to fast forward. Fast forwarding.
So I think ultimately we determined Chibi was at its best when it's kind of a playground. We don't take anything too seriously. Nothing in Chibi is canon, so we're really free to play with the characters and the style. We can make something one day is kind of inspired by anime, the next day it's more Looney Tunes, the next day it's more Nickelodeon style. Animators and directors have a lot of creative input on the show. And it's pretty flexible about what you can get away with because it's so in the realm of cartoony. For me, the best thing about the show is seeing all the little extra, unexpected things that people add to their shots, things that aren't in the script, but they just happen in this brainstorming part. And it's cute and it's funny, so we use it.
Yeah, that really has been, to me, the most exciting part about the season of Chibi, is just to see how the animators with the directors and with Carrie, it's really a collaborative process between everybody, throwing ideas and drawing things on the board. Is this going to work? I don't know. Let's try it out. Is that too crazy? Maybe. Let's do it.
Yeah.
And I've had so much fun seeing each animator come up with their own storyboards and their thumbnails and ideas that they're pitching. I think it's just really
It's a playground.
yeah, and you just get to see people working on the show really have a lot of fun with how much input they can have in each of their segments. I think this is something you mentioned on the last panel, but Super Besties is out, right?
Yeah.
Cool. So the the Super Besties segment in Chibi where Ruby is kind of stroking Weiss's hair.
Just being a total creeper.
Yeah, that wasn't part of the original idea at all. That wasn't in the script. That wasn't something that
Director didn't tell her to do
Yeah,
it.
that's
She just was like, I think this is funny. I'm going to put this in there.
And I love it. I love it.
And we all loved it, yeah, so we used it.
And that's something that happens pretty much in every segment for Chibi, so it's great. I get to love seeing everybody just, like you said, playing around with ideas.
Yeah.
And also, it's giving you the chance to all of you to direct your own segments as well, which has been cool to see that happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Andrea too. She's
Yeah. We're all directors now. In a lot of ways, Chibi was also kind of a testing ground. It's a shorter format, and it's not as involved a rendering process as Ruby is, so it made sense that we could use some of the new tools and work out some of the bugs before the Ruby schedule started. When we rolled out our new tech pipeline tools for Maya, we started with Chibi. We've also kind of been tinkering around with our review process with leads and directors, and we've kind of also been testing this out in Chibi. Part of the reason for kind of standardizing a new review process is, as Paco was saying, we have a lot of new directors. Carrie is still overseeing the whole process and gives final approval on everything, but this year, like, we sent out a call, like, anyone who wants to try their hand at directing, let's see what you can do. So it was people from different departments, people who've never directed before, even like animators themselves. I think all of us and Andrea have all directed Chibi segments, and it was an amazing opportunity to get to do that. It was great to see people get so excited about it. And I think it was a really great way to build collaboration in the studio and get a lot more creative points of view out there. It is a bit of a challenge because when you have a lot of creative voices, making sure that that the directors, especially people who may not be animators themselves, understood how Chibi animators worked, where they could play with the limitations, because we are somewhat limited by certain things, and how to make sure their vision for each segment turned out the way that they planned. That kind of leads us to the whole process. We started a whole new step and kind of formalized it this season. We did an animatic stage. Last season on Chibi, animators were encouraged to do their own like pre-planning and storyboards, sketching thumbnails and that kind of thing. But this season we took it a bit further and made it a whole step in the pipelining process. We require animators to build their own animatics, not just to work out poses, but also performance timing and camera moves. Unlike in Ruby, these things are done in layout. But in Chibi, animators mostly do this by themselves. The layout team, especially Kate, is Kate here? Nah, she's not here. They do a really great job of offering us any assistance if we need help, like figuring out where to put the camera and stuff like that. And of course, they also help us when we pass on our shots, tidying up our cameras, because they have a much better sense of that stuff than us. But yeah, for the most part, Chibi animators are pretty much responsible for setting a lot of that up with the directors and collaborating. So with these animatics, directors could know what to expect the animation to look like before we actually started the animation and made sure it was on track with their direction. A big reason we were able to do this so successfully this season is in part due to the great work with our audio department and the editing team. They got voice actors scheduled as soon as we got scripts and preparing the audio exports for the animators beforehand. This was huge because season one, because it was very loosely organized, it was not, we had to use a lot of temp audio, which isn't ideal when you're animating. But this season, like, we were able to proceed on much more sure footing without having to go back and make adjustments for timing and stuff like that when we got the proper audio to replace the temp audio.
I'm still haunted to this day of Gray's temp audio for Neon Cat. Like, anytime I hear Neon Cat, that's the only thing I still hear is Gray's voice doing it.
So originally in Volume 3, we didn't get the voice for Neon Cat until in the end. So Gray did the temp for it, but we all got used to it so much that to me it still sounds weird when I watch that episode. And it's who voices? Is that Meg?
Yeah, Meg. Yeah.
See, I don't even know because in my mind it's just Gray, and it's not Gray sounding like Gray. It's Gray doing
Neon, yeah.
what it should sound like, which is Gray's a really great voice actor, so
He is, yeah.
even then, like even him just doing it, that's just okay. That's what Neon Cat sounds like. That's that character, and when they took that away, it still makes me sad.
No,
I've looked for them. I don't know where they are.
I had that same experience when I was animating on season 1.
Cohen, woo!
Yay!
Woo! Sorry about that.
When I was animating the Evil Class segment with Cinder and Emerald, and then Nora and Ruby bouncing, we couldn't get Jessica for a while, so we had to use something, and Gray stepped in and did Cinder. He does a great Cinder. And to me, whenever I watch that segment, I still kind of hear his voice, because all of my poses were kind of matching his voice and the inflection he gave it, and he did such a great job with it.
We've always talked about we should release one episode where Gray just does the voices for every character. And you know what? It would work because he's so good at it. It'd be fine. But anyways, I'm
Oh, no, that's fine.
interrupting.
Another reason the animatics were so important to the process this season is we were working with much stricter time constraints. In season 1, it kind of often happens. We would have what we thought was a very short script. It was like a page, and we would think, oh, that's going to be like a 30-second segment. And then somehow the ball would get rolling, ideas would start flowing, we'd start playing out all the jokes and gags we wanted, and it ended up being like 3 minutes long. Well, this kind of leads to some unpredictable schedules, and in an effort to kind of control that a little bit better, we started using the animatics as a way to kind of clamp down on segments within certain time limits so we didn't have runaway effects like that again. This was tricky. This is probably, for me, this was the most challenging part of season 2. There is definitely an art to knowing how much time a joke needs to land, and whether something is necessary for a joke or if it can be cut. Fortunately, because it's chibi, we can bend the rules a lot, so there's a lot of like out-of-the-box thinking animation solutions we can come up with to make something work. Like, for example, instead of a character just walking into a shot, what if they just fell out of a tree? Like, it's chibi, you can do it, why not? Things like that. I definitely relied on Carrie a lot to make those calls and often find the right solution. He would come up with just really creative ideas that I wouldn't have thought of, and he was like, what if they just did that? I was like, oh, okay, yeah, they could just do that. That's so much simpler. Simplicity is a little bit of the name of the game when it comes to chibi. It's something we're probably going to still keep struggling with, but I think our instincts on where we can simplify and cut corners were improved a lot as the season went on.
I think part of the growing pipeline, as we get better at it every year, but it's never going to be perfect, and that's the thing about it. There's always places where you can improve on it and make it better. I feel like if we ever get to the point where the pipeline is perfect, then I'm probably not doing the right thing. But that's part of the fun too. Every time we start a new show or a new season of something, I've been here since the first season of Ruby, and we have never had a year where everything, we spent a lot of time figuring something out, and we got it to where we wanted it to be, and then the next year everybody said, okay, let's just do that again. Every single time we do a new show or a new season of something, everybody just gets together, and how do we make it look better? How do we make it work better for the animator? How do we save more time? So I think that's why the shows continue to evolve and look better.
Every time we finish a show, Cohen says, "It's the best thing you've ever made."
Because it is.
Because of that. I'm saying, he's being genuine because we do try to get better each time. So,
I don't want to make anything that was like last time. Like, that's not interesting to me.
That's boring.
I guess the final thing I'll talk about is just a little bit, because we were a little more structured with our animation schedule this time around. we were able to be a little more structured with the pipeline as a whole, which meant we were able to build more clear lines of communication between the departments. We had to keep art and layout departments up to date, with which segments we were planning on starting, so they knew which assets and files to prioritize. There's also a lot more back and forth discussions about assets as directors and animators are brainstorming and come up with ideas for gags that aren't in the script and maybe require a little bit of help from the modeling team or the rigging team. So that requires an extra level of organization to try and curtail overloading the art team with requests. We have a new pipeline. It's called a parallel pipeline, which basically means that as we're animating the post team with lighting and effects, they can also get started on the shots too, so that they're not kind of stuck at the end with the deadline coming up on them and it's all coming crashing down on them. So we can get them started a little bit sooner, which is great. But to that effect, we kind of have to be clear with our communication with them and let them know sooner rather than later, like what we're thinking for the shots, so that they can start planning on it before the shots actually get passed to them. This was especially important as our lighting team at the beginning of the season was developing a new rendering method to give Chibi a softer, nicer, like richer look. Occasionally, we'll also do a lot of unusual lighting challenges in a particular segment because we're going for something a little different, a little out of the ordinary. And it definitely helps to be able to give the post team some notice so that they can get started on that and start thinking about how they want to make it look as good as they can. Yeah, so it's like I said, it's like a puzzle being put together, and we all have improved our communication a lot better. We've come up with different strategies to make sure everyone gets what they need. And
Well, going off of that, I wanted to ask you how you felt directing a Chibi segment, like all three of you, for the first time, and how that experience was.
You want to start? Cohen directed too. Also.
Yeah, you go first.
I'm sorry I did dad jokes. That was the one I did.
I love it.
He's not sorry.
Yeah, that's all
We
my
have
fault.
to endure his dad jokes every single day.
And they're amazing. I think the biggest thing for us was just to try to get more people involved in the process, and it's really important to Carrie, Gray, Miles, anybody who's involved, and the animation leads to kind of foster the idea of people becoming directors and seeing what that takes, because not only does it benefit us growing a bigger pool of talent within our team, but at the same time, it kind of gives people who've never directed before insight on what it takes. So my approach is I actually have directed quite a bit before I came to Rooster Teeth, but I've never directed anything like Chibi. So there was that kind of quick little cutesy comedy was a challenge at first, but I think my biggest takeaway was if it feels like it's going too long or if it feels like it's slow, it's really slow, and to speed it up. That's my takeaway.
Yeah, for me it was a really interesting experience because, you know, being one of the 3D animation leads, like I get to sit down with Carrie a lot with the animators, and like we get to review animators' work together, and you know, just kind of watching him and his process, and you know, it's kind of interesting, you know, kind of taking, you know, the reins on, you know, a segment, because you know, I kind of learned a lot from that, but for me, the most interesting part of it was actually kind of starting to work with the other departments and kind of getting for feel of what they do and what they expect from, you know, a director, because, you know, I'm not super knowledgeable about lighting and comp, but, you know, it was really interesting that they were able to talk to me in a way that I could understand what kind of decisions that I was making, be able to you know convey you know what kind of direction I wanted to take something in. So that was probably the most enjoyable part for me, was just getting to work with the other departments and kind of really get a better idea of what they do.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, I think it was for me a lot of learning what I didn't know, because I think I know the stuff about camera and how to cut shots together, and then I would hear Carrie say, "Oh no, you should put this cut here instead of there," and he would explain why, and I'm like, that never would have occurred to me. I need to understand this better. We would send things to the lighting department, and they would, and I look at play blasts all day, which are so flat and drab, and everything they showed me, I was like, great, awesome, I love it, like ship it. And then like they would talk about it some more, like point out things. I was like, oh wow, yeah, there's a lot to this that I should learn more about.
What was the actual question? My favorite thing about directing, or what?
Yeah, what
Yeah.
were your impressions of directing?
It was fun. I mean, the first one that I did, I remember because I've worked really close with Carrie and stuff. I think I had asked him a question about something, and then I think he had said like, "Well, you're the director. What do you want it to be, or whatever?" And I was like, "Wait, I get to tell him what to do? Like, I get to decide what like Pierre's gonna do on this part, or like." I get to decide what was going to happen, so it was really just neat. That like it was like I was
Carrie
taken back.
super supportive of everyone's
Yeah.
ideas. Yeah.
Because I've been on Ruby since season 1, and so I'm always going to care to ask like what, how this certain thing should be. So for the first time when I actually got to decide what the character was going to do or how they were going to do it, it was really just great.
Yeah, I guess there's always that fear of, you know, we know the show, we've been working on the show for a while, but you still want to make sure you do it justice and that it, even with something like Chibi where you can go outside the box, like I said, and that's part of the fun of it, you still don't want to do something that is so out there that it might as well not be Ruby Chibi anymore. You know, it still has to make sense within that world, even with how crazy it can get. But yeah,
I think we push that envelope sometimes, though. You know, I think about there's a couple things we do with lighting sometimes that we've never done before. I think about the comp team. I did direct an episode. It was called Kickoff, where it's already been released. You guys have seen it, but it's where it looks like a movie, and there'll be like letter bars at the top and the bottom. It looks like it's on 2, 3, 5, and it's got like Ruby and Torchwick. They come face to face, and they start talking trash to each other. And then we pull back, and we see 2 other characters. The note was to the comp team was, "Hey guys, I don't know exactly what to do, but make this the coolest thing ever. Make it look like a movie." And they did it, and they showed it to me, and I'm like, "Yep, that's perfect." They put a little noise over the top of it. They put those 2, 3, 5 bars on it, and then we send over the music, and then just knock it out of the park. So sometimes we'll kind of push that envelope. But you're right, Paco. We still stay within the realms. It's just it's always just a slightly cheesier than it should be.
Yeah, and I think moving forward, we're just gonna get better at it. We love playing with these characters and getting silly with them, and sometimes breaking them out of character, sometimes breaking them out of the fourth wall. And,
yeah, there's some really, really funny stuff coming up.
And we just want to make it as funny, as appealing as we can, and it's been great.
Well, cool. Let's talk a little, if I can learn how to computer. Let's talk a little about Ruby Volume 4. Dustin, you want to kind of talk about some of the challenges that we face going into this season and how we did Volume 4? How we do 4?
Yeah, we definitely did it. I think, Joel, you mentioned earlier. Yeah, Joel mentioned earlier that because we were just going into Maya, we basically had to rebuild everything from scratch and come up with what it was going to be. And when you work on a show and you're used to doing it one way for so long, for 3 seasons, then we get into Maya and it's like really great or whatever, but you have to refigure out like, okay, how do I do this? But like you get used to doing it one way, and then so it's like a whole new thing.
Yeah.
We're gonna like switch on.
Yeah. No. Like I said, yeah. Moving to Maya, you know, we had a lot of new challenges this season. A lot from a tech perspective, just because we had to create a bunch of new tools for the first time, and luckily we have a really amazing tech team behind us that is making some really cool tools and stuff for us.
May I speak to that real quick?
Yes.
So last year, when did anybody come last year and see the trailer that we presented for the first time? Awesome, thank you so much. The one thing I want to mention is that we did not have the same technical team working on that one at the same time. We brought the technical director on after that. We did have a really great technical director. He went on to the effects team. His name's Jeff Young. He did amazing stuff for us. Once we moved into Maya, Eric Turman, he came on board. He did some really great work, but he was able to get Maya working in such a way within about 2 months' time, so that once we started, from the point that we finished the trailer and we started making the show, we could have lighting tools that would work the way we needed them to, and we had animation tools that would do the same. So if it wasn't without, the hard work of both Jeff and the hard work of Eric, we would have never been able to make Ruby Volume 4.
And then we get to chapter 1, and I managed to break everything.
Yeah.
Communication is a really important thing in a pipeline. I was using a tool that in a lot of shots that they weren't aware that we were using, and it ended up breaking a bunch of shots in that chapter 1 fight. So got pretty close down to the wire on that one, and I had to stay super late to basically reanimate a bunch of shots for that fight. So I think we're still working on it like a half hour before it.
Here's a little trivia. Did anybody watch Ruby Volume 4, Chapter 1 the day it came out? Okay, thank you. Do you remember that it was slightly late? Do you remember waiting and waiting? We barely got it done. And but with that said, with all that said, it was we were still doing really great work, but we were learning how to work out the pipeline at the time. We were learning to work with Maya, and by the time we got to the middle of the season, I feel like we started finding our sea legs at that point. But yeah, it was a struggle, but it was a struggle that was worth it because I think the show looks great.
I'm sorry.
He's not sorry.
Didn't we also have a problem? We were trying to upload it, but there were so many people on the site we couldn't upload
That really is the reason why it's late, because to be technical, we had the final export ready to go at 9 o'clock in the morning. It released on 10 o'clock, and I went to my machine, and I'm the person who typically uploads it. And I was sitting there, and I could not upload it because so many people kept hitting the website. They were so excited for it. All you guys, I love you. Thank you so much for being excited about it. But at that point, I was like, just let me upload the goddamn video, please. So, but it was, once it got up, everybody had rave reviews, and I was really, really happy about it. But I remember that we got it up around, I think it got up around noon, our time. And it was something. So.
Again, I'm sorry. Although those slacks about people telling people to stay off the website was kind of funny. Another thing is, we rebuilt Ruby 4 from scratch, like everything. Caesar's one of our modelers. He can probably attest to some of this. We rebuilt everything from the ground up this season, including, costume redesigns for all the major characters. One of the most exciting things about this season was some of the new Grimm that we got to work on. In previous seasons, I don't think we'd be able to achieve just some of the really cool animation that we've been able to do with them. Dustin, you want to talk about animating like the Sea Dragon and the Knuckleavy and?
Yeah, sure. Paula and I both actually worked on the Knuckleavy fight. I think someone I was just talking to in the hall earlier came up to me and was asking about that rig. I guess it had been mentioned at a different panel or something. I don't know. But anyway. Yes. But I was saying there was we ended up having what was it, Brian? 5 versions of arms and stuff.
The FK, the IK, the prop arm.
Yeah. So we had there were some shots where if you don't see the horse part, then the arm is probably just an actual separate rig that we had to bring in and just cheat. And then I guess from that. Wait, which one came first, the dragon or the
Dragon?
The dragon.
Yeah, the dragon rig came first, and it had a bunch of really cool features. So then when we got to 12, I think they made us one that was basically the same rig as the dragon, but had the geo for the Knuckleavy's arm, so we could still have all the cool features that the dragon could do, but in the arm. And then I think you had to use a different one that was when you did that shot.
Oh, yeah. I used kind of an FK chain arm for the shot where Nora and Ren get grabbed and like whipped around. Yeah, so that was a different one. And then I think there was another arm rig for the severed arm.
Oh,
that
yeah, yeah,
Aisha
yeah.
had to use.
Yeah. So.
There was a lot of arms.
Even the Beowulfs were a lot more fun to play with this year because
And
you
scary.
know, what?
And they're much scarier looking.
Yeah,
too.
I mean that was the most fun part about it is I think we were finally able to make the Beowulfs feel like really scary and powerful this year.
You
know,
could actually move their tail.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, and you know, obviously with Volume 4, I think one of our, you know, yeah, we had to build, you know, rebuild everything from scratch. And from the animation side of things, we kind of had to rediscover, you know, how we were going to animate the show. You know, in the past we had built, you know, our pipeline around, you know, various tools and stuff like that, but we didn't necessarily have going into Maya. Probably one of the most important things was the animation library. We had to rebuild our animation library from scratch, and we had all the animators chipping in on that. Yeah, that was really great. And then, you know, again, like one of the things we're trying to push with this volume, especially with all, you know, the really nice tune shading that we're trying to get is we are trying to push, you know, Ruby to look more anime. And so, you know, with that, you know, we're kind of trying to, you know, take into practice, you know, more, you know, 2D animation quality as far as the animation. You know, I think we kind of like kill out a lot more of our mocap than we have in the past because we want to kind of strive for the more, you know, pose to pose style that we see, you know, in a lot of the anime that we watch these days, and it's been really great.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, I guess going forward, obviously, yeah. I mean, I know. So yeah, I mean, like I said, the Weiss character trailer was kind of our, you know, vertical slice as far as, you know, season 5 and some of the, you know, the things, you know, the practices and styles that we want to try out for this season. You know, we have, you know, a fully developed team now. Pretty much the team that we have right now, they pretty much worked for the entire season of Ruby and, you know, going forth in Chibi. But yeah, I mean, the main thing to take away is, you know, last year was all about, you know, finding our foothold, you know, figuring out the new tools and the pipeline and, you know, figure out, you know, where as animators we fit in and, you know, how we're going to take things forward. And what I'm really excited about this year is it's really about growth this year. Like for us, it's like, okay, we finally know what we're doing. Now we can go and we can actually like really start to polish and, you know, experiment and, you know, figure out, you know, how we can, you know, push it farther than we have. Because again, kind of like what Cohen said, we don't want to just do the same thing we did last year. We don't want to do Volume 4 again. We want to define Volume 5, and by that, you know, again, we want to push, you know, more, you know, principles of animation, you know, more anime style, and so forth.
Yeah, I think one of the best things I've seen so far, because is the teammates, like our animation team, they're getting more comfortable with each other. They're learning how to talk to each other, giving each other critiques. I think that's only going to get better, and I think that's really how you grow as an artist. Is you just you surround yourself with people you feel inspired by, and you see what they're doing, and it makes you want to do better in what you do.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. Being surrounded by talented people, even if you're working on something that's very challenging, it just makes the whole experience enjoyable, and especially in situations like this where, you know, we worked on the Ruby 4 trailer or even the Weiss short for a while, and all those things always bring their own challenges. They always bring discussions, and people don't agree with each other, but at the end of the day, when we get it done and we come to RTX and all you guys get to watch it and everybody just loses it, it's always just worth it, and it's always just the best feeling in the world. Like, hey, I got a small part in making all those people happy, and there's nothing better than that.
You know, I don't think you guys know how important you are to us. That's true. Like, we read your comments. We pay attention to everything you say. Every time we release an episode, we read Reddit. We read our website. If you're happy, we're happy. if you're unhappy, we pay attention to it and we try to improve. If so just know that your voice is being heard, and we really care that you're our fans. We love you.
So now we can either. Is that the end?
there's
Hey,
Ruby.
look, it's Kruby. Aw, good times.
This is the entire team, including our off-site animator, Sean, who I had to Photoshop in the background here. But no, we always say it all the time. We're one big family, and it's really fun to get to work with such a talented group of people, and I'm so thankful for it.
Yeah.
That's not all of Kruby, technically.
No, that's animation, Kruby.
Yeah, animation crew. There's a lot of other people too.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. Let's,
I'll roam the floor. Who
Ask
wants to
us
go?
things.
You first, sir.
Hello. I just wanted to know what rendering engine you use.
currently, we're using Redshift, right, Cone? Yeah.
If you didn't hear it, we use Redshift, and we use Redshift in order to do the backgrounds for Ruby, and then for the characters we use Max and Pencil, which gives it that really cool toon shading look.
It seems like whenever Ruby is mid-season, things get really down to the wire when it comes to animation and comp, like episodes being uploaded hours before their air date.
Sorry.
It's okay. With Volume 5, do you feel like you're going to have less of that because you're more settled into the pipeline?
Yes.
Or do you feel like you're going to want to, since you've gotten used to things, you want to step up and up the quality, and then you'll just fall back into
I
that?
think this year it will definitely be better because we're actually, for the first time, like, we're getting to work on the show now before it actually starts releasing. So we're getting ahead that way. And then, as I think Paula was mentioning before, we have what's called
A parallel pipeline.
there it is. Anyway, so what that means is instead of comp and them having to wait for us to actually finish something, we can cache it and then they can go ahead and do the lighting and stuff while we're still animating. So everyone's working together at the same time. So we're not going to be up against the wire as much as we have been in the past, if that answers your question.
Yeah, one thing I will add to that really quick is that last year we started animating on Volume 4 right around the end of August. We started animating on Volume 5 several months ago. So we're already ahead of the curve. The reason we fall behind a lot of times is because we're trying to, especially when you're trying to make a new show with a brand new look, you're having to R&D improve things. This year, because we already have the information from Volume 4, we have a really great head start.
Thanks for that question.
I know this maybe sound like a really odd question, but in a couple of years when like there's a lot less work, I mean, could there be potential to update the very first seasons of Ruby with the current technology?
I'm gonna let
Sorry,
Cohen
I
answer
don't- I
that
don't-
one.
I don't mean that as
We
an
have joked
insult.
about it before, but I don't know if that'll.
Because I know.
So
I
was
know-
the question, are we planning on
Would we ever go back?
remaster season
The
1?
question is are we planning on going back and remastering season 1 and 2 someday?
That joke gets made around the office a lot, but I don't know if there's any actual plans. I also don't know if I'm allowed to say anything like that.
I would
know.
say that-
I will say that I have had several animators tell me if we ever had to do that, they would quit.
We can do it, but we'll do it RTAA style.
There we go. And Gray will voice everyone.
Cool.
One thing on season 4, and it was really nice seeing all the updated animation. How it's always got at least just one element that improves it with each season. I know like season 2 added more depth in both the characters and the backgrounds and whatnot. And I actually kind of got off topic from my question. But one thing with season 4 is, I guess, because the big thing was centered around Ruby, and there was only really that one long plot line as far as what they were going. They were just traveling. It kind of felt a little. The season was about the same as all the other seasons, but it felt a little short, I guess, because of that. Whereas the other ones, they had like the different plot lines split up along them, especially season 3.
Sure.
So compared to season 3, coming from season 3, it even though it wasn't shorter, it kind of felt shorter. I think a little bit.
What is
So
the
what's the
timeline
question?
Yeah.
It was for season 5. Are we going to see more of the other characters?
We're not
maybe
gonna-
making that not.
I'd say we're definitely going to answer any story questions about season 5. If I can, I'm going to try
no,
to answer
not-
that in a very safe way. But
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to go into spoiler.
No, you're
territory. I
good.
just meant that it was very focused on
Sure,
Ruby, so
I
it
think-
felt shorter. because
There will
of
be
it, I
characters.
having worked on the show for a while, the sort of, and I don't want to speak out of turn, but the arc of volume 1 through 3 was basically one major arc. So if anything, that climaxes at the end of volume 4, and then you sort of pick it up again from with volume 4. So to me, it just almost seemed like this is a nerdy comparison, but if you read Song of Ice and Fire, that story kind of gets to a peak at the end of Storm of Swords, and then it kind of goes back into, okay, let's sort of figure it out again. So that's it's just a natural progression of storytelling and plotting that maybe makes it feel that way. And the ending of Volume 3 is such a big climax that it's going to feel that way when you go back to character work.
Very well said, Paco.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, so in the Volume 1 Blu-ray, there's this extra scene where Nora drinks Pira's syrup in the Blu-ray. So that wasn't in the original release. So I was wondering, is that like an extra animation that was added in afterwards, or is that like a deleted scene that got added in the...
I'm not sure.
It was probably not made just for that, I don't think. I don't remember.
No.
I worked on it, I don't remember.
Yeah, that seems like forever ago, but I do know, the animators always have fun with the characters and their free time. I don't know if, was that in Volume 1 too? And then Blu-ray for Volume 1, there's a hidden Easter egg, I guess, of the Ursa's dancing with, what's his name?
West Russell.
Yeah, so...
Ursa in the woods, that whole bit. Yeah, and that was animated after because we actually finished the show up, and I was helping do something else around the office, and I just animated it, and then they were putting the Blu-ray together, and we put it like hidden on there. So
animators are always having fun with that. If you went to the last panel with the tips and tricks, they showed these Overwatch-looking animations with the characters. They love animating. It's what they do.
Hi, so I'm just starting to get into animation, and I was just wanting to know if any of you guys have started with 2D animation, and if you did it kind of help you understand or learn 3D animation faster?
You go.
Well, I've done a little bit of 2D animation, not like hand-drawn animation, mostly animating in like After Effects. It's pretty transferable. I mean, the principles are always the same, like the 12 basic principles. I do think you have to. Gosh, I was just talking about this with someone out in the hall. 3D animation in a way is kind of a more kin to stop motion animation because it's more like you're manipulating a puppet rather than manipulating like a flat thing, going pose to pose, frame by frame. But yeah, 3D animation, it helps to kind of think of it in layers. Like you build layers upon layers on layers. You like maybe build a pose, but then you start building like overlap and anticipation and follow through, and then at the end you add the facial animation. You don't typically do that in 2D.
Yeah, I was gonna say I actually got my start in doing more 2D animation. I started out, working in Flash when I was a kid, and one of the benefits of working in 2D is it almost creates more appreciation for 3D because when you're first starting out in 2D and learning those principles of animation, I think it's a lot harder to achieve those in 2D, and then once you get to 3D, it's like, it's a lot easier to do a bouncing ball in 3D than it is in 2D, but it also, again, something you were talking about at the 3D Tips and Tricks is it teaches you how to draw, and drawing is an important part of being an animator. But, and another thing is that you don't necessarily have to be good at drawing. I mean, I'm terrible at drawing, but it's understanding those principles that is behind it helps you be a better animator.
I was wondering, when Monty designed the season 1 designs, he talked on Twitter about how he made them cosplayer friendly, the different pouches and stuff that were on people's belts, and a lot of the people in the cosplay community noticed that there was a resurgence of that with the Volume 4 outfits. Ruby having her backpack, Blake's pouch, and I was wondering, when you design for a show that you know is going to be cosplayed, do you keep that in mind with like how people are going to build things?
So none of us actually design characters, but we know that that's something Monty always did, and he would like release them so like you could see turnarounds and stuff like that, and so that's something that we've continued to do, and so yeah, that's the thing.
I will say that there is also a balance you kind of have to strike between the design of a character and also how it's going to be rigged. Like I know when we designed Blake's coat tails, we kind of had to like I think the original design had like a front part of her coat, and that was going to be really tricky to rig, so we kind of just made it coat tails ultimately. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks for that question.
Yes, I have a question about how you produce the Blu-rays and the DVDs. Is it technically difficult to convert the files that you upload to the website and broadcast on the web to that format? Does it require re-rendering? Is it much
That's
more
a good Cohen question.
Yeah.
So the basic way we do it is the only big difference that we do versus what you see on the internet, episode-wise, we turn into a big movie. Then we have to turn into, if it's on Blu-ray, a different format. If we go into iTunes, it's MOV file. If we go into DVD, if it's a different format. The biggest challenge is making sure we can fit everything onto that platform. So for instance, DVD has very little space. So typically we have to make that movie slightly smaller and make some hard decisions about whatever extras we put on there. DVDs, sky's the limit. I mean, typically we have not, only on RVB 14 did we have too much content to put on the Blu-ray. So, but yes, there is some formatting, but it's pretty much straightforward, and it really has to do making into a long movie.
The frame rate isn't an issue then between them?
No, frame rate it stays the same. So we animate in 24, and it stays the same when we convert it over.
It's not 30 then?
No, the only time you'd actually have to change the frame rate, if you were to go like say NTSC or something like that for television, then you would have to like go to 60. But that's just for television formatting. If you go for like DVD or Blu-ray or anything like that, you can stay in 24. Cool.
All right, just lightning round because we have a few minutes left.
Right.
Sorry, go ahead, Joel.
Nope, you're good.
So what was the difference in designing the Halo 3 armor and then going over to Halo 4 and animating that?
Is there a difference between
So the difference between animating in the Halo 3 armor and then the Halo 4 armor?
There's not really a big difference. I think, some is bulkier than the other. Armor is always kind of a thing because of the way the Halo characters are set up. Like if you play Halo, you see like the armor goes through itself all the time, but we try not to do that. So it's basically the same. You're just trying to make sure that it's not like doing something weird or distracting when you want people looking at the character. But yeah, armor's armor, I think, kind of in that situation. I don't know, Joel, what you think?
Yeah.
I was wondering, how did you end up doing RVB season 14, episode 24? Red versus Blue versus Rooster Teeth?
That's the live action one, right?
Yeah. So your question is, how do we do it? So that's a long conversation on how we did it. But ultimately, we shot the live action plates first. We had people in mocap suits to give us kind of placement and depth. We had a lot of green screen elements that we put together as well. And then we worked with several companies. We had our internal comp team and animation team work with it. And then we had a few people here in town help us as well. But we took the live action elements and the elements we did in-house with animation, and we comped those all together. And our comp team and lighting team knocked it out of the park. But I make that sound simple. The process itself took like almost 4 months. And it was really, really difficult. And I'm really proud of the product, but it was one of the hardest things we ever created.
Yeah.
Cool. What you got?
In Ruby Volume 4, was there any animation that you felt unsatisfied with or felt you could do better on? And if so, how would you fix that or improve yourselves for Volume 5?
One of you guys want to take it?
As an animator, I'm never satisfied with
that,
anything.
that was my answer too. I was trying not to be a bummer, but yeah, every time I put something out, I'm always thinking like, oh, if I had only had like another week. I mean, you can just work on it and polish it and polish it and polish it, but ultimately it has to get released. So you can't really dwell on that much. But yeah, I mean, I think as an artist, you always want to get better, and so that's going to continue to be a thing, which is not a bad thing.
I could do 320 more versions of that one shot if I could.
I mean, but you just have to treat every opportunity as a learning experience and like, well, next time I won't do it that way and move on.
I just want to thank you all for what you've done for Rooster Teeth and also the help you've given out for the community as well. And also...
Thank you.
And also, we love you all very much, just as we love everyone from Rooster Teeth, Funhouse, Kind of Funny, everyone, all equally, as much as we all do each other. And,
thank you.
But just to be clear though, I kind of love you a little more. Can we answer that? Adam was there yet? The entire time.
Oh yeah, I didn't see him.
I think our time is up. So.
We can do 2 more questions because no one else is coming up next. Is that okay? We do 2 more? Okay, cool.
All right.
All right.
He's the boss.
Yeah, he's the boss.
Thanks, man. So this question has probably already been answered, but I have probably not been paying enough attention. What is
Thanks for coming.
What is probably the critical major reasons that you switched the animation style from like the first 3 volumes of Ruby and then Volume 4 and then Volume 5?
You mean switching over to Maya? Or
yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, the main thing was, so in previous seasons we were working with Poser, and with each season we were able to push it further and further. But I think with Volume 3, we reached the peak that we could, do with it. I mean, we pushed it way beyond what it could originally do, and again, with every season, we strive to really push beyond, what we did in the previous season. And Maya was kind of just the natural route that we wanted to take with that. So, yeah, I mean, that's why we moved, because we really wanted to be able to push farther than we had before.
So my question is about the face rigging and the mouth movements for when they're talking.
I saw that look, Brian.
But it was mostly for when animating the mouths. Is there some sort of software that you use so that the mouths move with the sound of the voices, or do you actually what is it? A hand key.
Yeah,
Thank
we
you.
have to hand key it all.
Hand keys.
Yeah.
We hand key everything for Ruby, but in the past we used to use something called Phase Shift for RVB. Like I guess that was for Mercs. Yeah, that's what we're using.
No, that was for RVB 13.
Oh, RVB 13. Yeah. Well, that was a different. Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, we hand key everything for Ruby and for GB as well.
Cool. The Guardians are kind enough to say we can do a few more questions. So.
Cool. Thank you, Guardians. Big shout out to the Guardians.
Big shout out to the Guardians.
Yeah. I actually have 2 questions, but the first one's a real fast yes or no. Are you guys responsible for coloring the props, characters, and so on, or is that modelers?
Modelers.
Okay. Then I don't have a second
And
question.
compers. and lighters
Blame him.
and artists, not us.
Last question, guys. Sorry. I remember seeing, I think a few months ago or something, I think it was a Vine or something, an animation of the cast of RWBY. They were doing like pelvic thrust dance or something. Do you guys ever make any of your own little animations for fun?
Yeah.
So
Well,
this-
we had a demo reel we showed last RTX, didn't we?
We had a blooper reel, yeah.
Yeah.
Joel does some good ones. Wait, we don't have it with us this year.
No, we don't screw up as much.
Hey,
as
everybody, thanks so much for coming. We hope you have a good rest
Thank
of your
you.
RTX.
Thank you. No, it's not available. I don't. How does computer? I don't know.